life's crossroads. So, welcome to episode 4.
Wonderful. It's wonderful to have this time together to consider this aspect of our intelligence, which has been operative in our experience probably throughout life, whether we recognized it or not. Right. So it's wonderful we have this opportunity to spend time together
Yeah.
and with all of you
Yes.
to examine this experience that we've been having, let's say.
Recognized or unrecognized.
Right.
It's been part of it.
Right.
So in Spiritual Matters, we've been talking about this practical living of a spiritual path of this applied spirituality in life. What's it like to actually be in the world and navigate life? So with this topic today, we wanted to kind of focus in on this notion of crossroads, of coming to places in life where maybe we have to make a choice. Maybe there's an option as to we follow this path or another. Or maybe there was back in the past and we didn't even recognize that there was a choice, that there was a crossroads on the journey. So yeah, maybe we'll start there. This question of life, right? Of a sense of maybe we're in the moment asking, where do I need to go? Or where am I going? Or how did I get here? Because this really, I think, speaks to the why of this notion of inner guidance that we're going to be discussing today. Right.
Now, there's this innate pull or feel in life. We sometimes refer to it as life direction. That's how it may play out. That is how it's playing out potentially. But there's this notion and reality of navigating the world in front of us, the life in front of us. And what are the tools that we have in hand to help us navigate and stay true to ourselves? Right? Because there's a lot of, whether you call it social pressure or the tendency to more or less adopt what other people may consider their way, right? Whether it's family or friends or colleagues or whatever, or influential people in our lives. But what's the way for us? And is that actually an expression of a greater intelligence within us, actually?
Right.
So.
Or not.
Right. Or not.
Right. Yeah, there's this perhaps people can kind of relate to this notion of pausing in life and asking oneself, how did I get here? I know I've heard people in my life that are close to me kind of exclaim that after going through a process of perhaps facing the discomfort of where they are and not feeling like they actually got there consciously or got there because they actually chose that, or because there was any deeper sense that that's what they need to do, and they found themselves living a life in a place with relationships and a whole environment, a whole life lived, asking themselves, how did I get here? What was what was I listening to?
I have a little story to tell with regard to just what you said.
Yeah.
Back in my college days, I was a runner, and I would go run around what was a reservoir, a body of water surrounded with woods, and I would go run. And I came upon an encampment, a man who had set up an encampment, had a dog, had a tent. And so I, at some point, with one or two of my runs around that environment through the woods, I encountered this gentleman. And it turned out he was a 6-figure executive who was taking a pause in his life to literally examine whether the life he was living was the life for him to live. It was really an amazing experience to meet and encounter this gentleman. And we had conversations over a period of months. And it's interesting because the local authorities or police normally would not let somebody set up a domicile in the woods like that. And yet they engaged with this gentleman. And they ultimately said, you know what? This man, it's okay. It's fine. This man is okay. So over the course of time, I had the chance to engage with him and to hear about his process of re-examining his life. He was a six-figure executive. He had 2 children. He was happily married. But something presented itself to him from his conscience. That's what he said. Something is presenting itself to me from my conscience. Is there something else I need to be doing with my life? Really struck me at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, such an example of encountering a crossroad. It's almost like when I hear that story, to me, it seems like that's someone who actually realized that there was a crossroad. I don't know why, but when we talk about crossroads, I have this vision of like literally, like an old Roman road or something, and you kind of come and you encounter like a Y in the road, and this road leads that way, and this road leads that way.
Oh yeah.
Or it might be actually that the road seems straight, but there's actually a pull off, so it's not an exact Y in the road. And it's such a risk that we actually don't even realize that our exit was back there. And when I hear about this gentleman, it seems like that's someone who actually had the spaciousness to actually be able to realize, hey, there might be an exit here.
Right.
For not for what's right in general, but for what's right for me in my life.
Well, using our terminology today, his inner guidance or his conscience was sort of pecking at him to try. And we're so engaged in life, we're so committed and engaged, and et cetera, et cetera. It's amazing that this quote inner guidance, and we'll speak of this further and describe a little bit of its characteristics so that maybe we can all be on the same page regarding this experience. But this something was pecking at him to the point where it actually broke through his reality to that extent. It caused him to pause in life and to re-examine what he was doing. That's pretty remarkable, actually. Really. So yeah, and I would say with regard to these crossroads, there's a build up to the crossroad. And we will get signals along the way, or discomforts, or indicators, whatever you want to call it, along the way. I would say if I go back, and I would encourage all of us to go back in time, just in terms of really engaging with what we're talking about here today. Go back in time and then come forward in time, and look for those times when you were knowing something. Okay. And then also at the same time, look for those crossroad experiences, which we've all had probably in life. I know I have. To see there actually sort of is almost a buildup. It's almost like something on the edges of us, of our intelligence, is trying to get our attention, to engage with us around the potential of what's ahead.
Yeah. That's a good addition to the visualization of this crossroad. There's almost signs on the road at times. We may see them or we may not. But yeah, there's something that perhaps is trying to reach us in relation to our journey, to perhaps a decision or a choice or something that requires us to actually pay attention and become engaged with life from a place of a deeper intention and not just momentum.
Right.
That makes me think of also like, because there's this life mapping that we can do where we go back and we look at our past and we see those moments where there was a deeper knowing, or we actually followed something ineffable within us, something that was not explained, right? This perhaps that we actually did follow this inner guidance, but to kind of almost illustrate what that inner guidance is, I find it useful to actually compare it to all the other things that can replace it in that experience, right? Because we encounter thresholds or crossroads in our
Mm.
life all the time.
Mm.
And yet there's so many things that can actually supplant that in our
Oh yeah.
experience,
Oh
right?
gosh, yes.
Like I think about it so much that we're, one part of us, this body, this brain, physical brain, is mammalian brain. It's so hardwired to avoid pain,
Mm.
right? Like, and to survive, basically.
Mm. Mm.
So it's there's this hardwire towards
Mm.
avoid pain, survive, and basically as much as possible seek comfort
Gee, wow.
and
Yes.
security.
Right.
And it's like that is operating almost like as a baseline, whether we're aware of it or not.
And consider, okay, so if it's true that we have a blended intelligence, okay, so consider this for a moment.
Mhm.
We have the mind that we think with amazingly, right? That has really developed over time incredibly within society, and it's with the assistance of science and sociology and blah, 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 blah. But then there's this innate intelligence that's been with us from the beginnings of our origins as a race, right? And so this innate intelligence is attempting to stay in the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it exhibits its own indicators to us.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like strong feelings, spontaneous insights. How can these things compete with this whole intellectual process and all the societal, influences that exist around the mind we think with? How can this knowing, but it's amazingly, somehow or another, it's in the game, staying in the game,
Mm.
persistent feelings, recurring images that come to mind. We just, in terms of sort of bringing almost up to the conscious level,
Yeah.
how this intelligence tends to manifest, it's pretty interesting. Um, it's interesting how, and it's not like it's competing with the intellect, it's attempting to work with the intellect.
Mm.
It's almost, if we stop for a moment to consider that we may have a blended intelligence,
Yeah.
okay, and let it be so. We need more intelligence, right? Because there are many times in life where you don't have the time to figure something out and you have to act. You have to kind of get it.
Mhm.
You have to just. I was speaking to a surgeon the other day, and he was describing a situation in surgery that there wasn't time to figure it out in a sense. He did consult his partner, but they had to act right in the moment, right? So this is available to us. This is an aspect, this is a resource that's available to us
Yeah.
to negotiate this forward movement towards these crossroads, which inevitably will come for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As you were speaking there's this notion of this blended intelligence, and for me, it's almost like the whole body, mind, spirit
Yeah,
trifecta.
yeah.
That occurs to me as an analogy of like what are these layers of intelligence that are
Oh, I
operating,
get it.
because the
Yeah.
body has an incredible
Yes,
intelligence, right?
totally.
Like, and thank goodness for it because it keeps us alive. Right? It avoids us jumping off the bridge or whatever, or getting into some kind of physical danger, um, and yet that can get in the way of bringing other things into consideration when encountering a crossroad or making an important decision in life, right? If those very innate but also very base instincts kick in of like pain avoidance and comfort and
Mm,
security,
mm,
and we interpret them as some sort of illuminated insight,
mm,
my
mm,
goodness, how quickly we can deceive ourselves
mm,
to living the comfortable life,
mm,
and taking the secure path and the
mm,
path of safety and the path of predictability, right?
mm,
And then
mm,
there's this second layer, which is the intelligence of the mind,
mm,
right? Which is much more in relation. It's in relation to different aspects of reality. Perhaps not only the physical,
mm,
which the body is much more attuned to, but the social, right? So we might be measuring others' perceptions. How will this affect how people perceive me, or whether it's my family or my friends or my colleagues or whatever, or um, or it may allow ourselves to be influenced in different ways, right? The different
mhm.
programming that happens at the mind since we're
Right,
born,
right.
of what we value, of what we should do, of what the right thing to do is, quote unquote. And if we actually haven't examined those things, my goodness, they can also percolate all the way up, and we might think that we're following spirit, or we're following inner guidance, or we're following something greater, and yet we're perhaps not. There's this amazing quote by Carl Jung that I just love, because it captures this so well. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And to me, that just speaks of like the importance of realizing these things that can consciously or unconsciously compete with inner guidance, and we can mistake them for inner guidance. You know, I mean, one of the huge ones, and I think our society experience has so much of this, is trauma. Right? There's a way in which trauma can almost veil itself as wisdom. Right? That like we experienced this, we learned our lesson, and therefore we won't, every time we encounter a similar situation, a similar crossroad, we react in the same way instead of relating to it as it actually is in the moment, guided by this inner guidance that might be completely, unrelated to that last experience we had, similar though it may be. So anyways, and then there's this third layer, I think, of intelligence, which is really what we're circling around here today in our discussion, which is this inner guidance. And what is this inner guidance? Where does it come from? What is it rooted in? What is it informed by? If it's not informed by a pros and cons list concocted by our mind, or a base level reaction of survival or comfort or security, what is this inner guidance actually driven by? What informs it? What do you think?
Gosh, well, these questions we all need to live with and stay with. For those of you who feel moved to sort of go there with regard to your experience of this inner guidance, you'll need to live with these questions and to see what the experience reveals to you. You know what I mean? Because let's just say quite simply, there's the mind we think with. Thank God, we've developed this mind that we can think with and problem solve with. We know that there's another aspect of processing, which let's say for the moment here in our conversation together, the mind we know with. Okay, so with that said, how does that mind manifest? So that's what's up for all of us, to be with our experience, either to go back in time and re-examine, or to stay in time. I mean, honestly, these quote manifestations of inner guidance are probably, they may not happen every day, but they may be happening more often than we have recognized, and they may be washing over the horizon, over the waterfall of our experience, because they're outcompeted with all this other stuff that's completely clouding or occupying our attention, our mind, our sensorium. But the truth is, I mean, just going up the stairs the other day, two days in a row, I literally got a quote, if you want to call it a message, going up those stairs. Okay, how to go up those stairs to develop greater lower extremity strength. It just came to me. It was interesting. It was like, do this. It's not like a treatise. It's like, do this, do that. Two different things and I was like, wow. So that the experience may manifest like that in the moment. On the other hand, there can be things in life that you experience or that you engage with that can stimulate the inner guidance experience. An example of this just came to mind to me today. I remember back in my college days, sitting near a small body of water near the campus of my college, and I was sitting there and I was reading Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and I had this impact moment. Self-reliance, like it's almost like whether it was Ralph Waldo Emerson, I felt speaking to me directly or whatever. It's like, girl, get with it. What do you get about your situation? It had to do with what academic pathway I was going. I was at a crossroads.
Mm.
The truth was, I was approaching a crossroads, and this thing called it out, and it had an impact upon me. So the point is, reading this piece by Ralph Waldo Emerson had an impact on me in the moment. So that may happen too. Things in life may strike us in a certain way, and we have a little bit of an exceptional moment, or something comes to mind, or we're struck by something. It manifests differently. Sometimes you have to look at your own experience. Sometimes you get chills.
Mm.
I don't know if you've ever had the experience of having chills.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's like a body knowledge experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So,
Hmm.
whatever. So it's up to us to begin to look at this, the possibility of our having had an inner guidance experience, and when did it occur, if we can remember, and or going forward, might it happen, and will I be aware of it when it does?
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like I think there's a threshold perhaps for each individual. And I wonder if for humanity as a whole, where there's this recognition that this aspect of intelligence exists. It's not just our imagination. It's not just like, a like good, feel good notion that we made up of like intuition or, luck or, you know, gut feeling. And we just kind of use those words to describe something that we hope exists, but maybe, it doesn't. And then when it's right, we feel it's right. And when it's not, we don't give it attention. But there's almost like a before and after of like the acknowledgement and the full acceptance that actually this intelligence within us is real, that there actually is this capacity to have clarity that does not come from intellectual pursuit, does not come from a compare and contrast standpoint. It's not to say that that our mind should just be ignored. It's an incredible vessel, but that that we have the possibility of experiencing a knowing as far as the path for our life, a choice that we must make, what to do or not to do, and that is informed and known from an intelligence that is distinct from what we're used to in our regular operating mind. What a step forward for an individual. I know for myself as well, and I feel like I come to this every single day because I have to remind myself again and again and again that this is real, and that I need to almost connect with my desire to to be guided from that place, collecting my desire for inner guidance, because the mind has a way of wanting to take the wheel again and again, right?
Oh, gosh, yes.
But to step into this place where we accept it and we actually welcome that inner guidance, yeah. And it might be scary too, because sometimes this inner guidance might pose things that don't necessarily make sense to our mind, to ourselves. It might not be what we would choose. It might not be what seems most comfortable or whatever. And yet perhaps that trust is something that needs to be built over time as we in go on the adventure of following it, of listening to it, and then seeing what happens. And it's almost like that process builds more trust in that this intelligence is real. And it's actually not operating in some far off realm. It's actually in relationship to our lives.
Correct.
And what's happening here.
Yes. Oh, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that it's important let's just suggest or put forth the opportunity for all of us to take greater note of this experience when or if it happens. There can be periods of time where there's a vacancy almost too, where you have a need, you need to know something, and nothing's coming up. It's mysterious in that way. So that's real as well.
Yeah.
So for us to begin to just consider that this is a possible possible or probable, whatever, aspect of our intelligence that is operative, that is engaging with us and is in a relevant way. Some of these impressions or inner guidance experiences are incredibly related to practical issues. It's not like it's mystical stuff. It's literally about what you should do with regard. Well, it's not an elaborate explanation. It's more or less a directive. That's what it feels like. Like somebody's just pointing a finger and going, "Do that, consider that, hear that, see that," that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that does. But with that input, that does go into the mix, into the chemistry of our consideration regarding next steps and decisions and priorities, right? So we're here today to encourage us to consider the reality of this in our experience and to allow this, whatever this natural process is, to stir our intelligence. We need greater intelligence, collectively and individually, to face the future that's in front of us, which is now. I mean, it like never before. The future has become now. We see it almost every day, with significance and implication.
Yeah.
We feel like I don't know how everyone is feeling, but these times feel what's the word? They're significant.
Yeah.
Maybe it's always felt significant all along the way, and that's probably true too. So we need to take a position of greater participation, even within our own intelligence, as a participating member of humanity, right? So we need, each of us, if we can bring more into the game, quote unquote, more conscience, more awareness, more presence of mind, not to idealize the situation. I'm just saying it's an opportunity.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I don't think we're alone necessarily in feeling like things are accelerating in the world. That change seems to be accelerating. That decline of different types, or destabilization, perhaps, is a better way to put it. That's what seems most apparent. And at the end of the day, as it relates to us, perhaps in our navigation of life, it almost seems like what life is becoming is just more unpredictable. Increasingly unpredictable. And there's a way in which, I know I've felt it, where there is just this overwhelm. When I engage my mind to try to figure out what's happening, or what I need to do, or how do I prepare for the future, or what do I do with my finances, or what do I, you know what I mean? It's like there is an overwhelm, because the complexity of the world, which is already complex and has always been complex, but with this increasing complexity, with the destabilization of the systems and the social systems and the infrastructure and everything that we have taken for granted, perhaps over the last 75 years, starting to actually become a little less stable. Sometimes I get to the point where I'm like, I just don't know. Like I can't figure it out. And it's almost like encountering that limit is, in a sense, a blessing, because then there's almost an opening for that greater intelligence to come into play. It's to kind of to actually encounter the limits of the intellect, and the limits, honestly, of oneself, right? And as far as we relate to that, to that intelligence and to that aspect of ourselves, and to almost open up to this inner guidance, right? There's like a process of where this aspect of me that's like, I have to figure this out. I have to, like, at the end of the day, it's an instinct of control for safety and predictability, and it just gives out. And this has to surrender to something greater, not something necessarily external, but something greater, perhaps, that can manifest within us, that we can have a direct experience of.
Wonderful.
and that then we can begin to trust and walk with.
Mm.
I feel like that represents a turning point.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens perhaps in a life, but it happens also, for me, it happens throughout the day, where I might turn and have this moment of actually a part of me surrendering to this deeper intelligence, to this inner guidance, and starting to actually trust that, walk with that, seek that guidance. Because I realize that though my intellect is very important and it's incredibly powerful as far as doing things here in the world, as far as me feeling like I'm walking the right path, as far as me feeling like when I encounter that crossroad, I will walk the path that I need to. I know it's this inner guidance that actually holds the right answer for me.
Wow. Well, think of all the people, all of us worldwide, I mean, who are going through this process of what you call intellectual or social fatigue, where you take something only so far and you may not be able to fully resolve it, and there you have to live with an incompletion or who knows what, right? So, and we are all living with problems that are waiting for solutions for sure. But what we're bringing forth here today is the, whether you want to call it a declaration or not, there's another aspect of our intelligence. It's almost like, that's there for us in the face of this intellectual social fatigue that we can more or less defer to, not necessarily only relax into, even though we could take that moment to consider it in that way in a moment. But because it comes back with a pointed finger often to say, do this. It's not like, you know what I mean, it's going to rub your back. But I mean, so the point is that it's there. It's there with us. And we need to develop a greater relationship with this aspect of our intelligence. And it will help us cope and contend with the world that we are in today, and that is right around the corner, right? Collectively, together. And this aspect of intelligence can also inspire and ignite others. It has that quality also in its own right. So we've got some big gaps that we've got to fill collectively as a civilization. By gaps, I mean solutions, given the predicament of the situation we are beginning to find ourselves in. Okay, so this greater intelligence is manifesting momentarily here and there in our experience. So what we're here to do is to encourage all of us to consider taking note of this experience for ourselves and to see what level of contribution it does make or can make, on a day-by-day basis. So we're not talking philosophy here, actually. We're talking operational intelligence. Right?
Yeah. Navigation.
Right.
Life navigation.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a previous academic science background, and so I do track certain people in the scientific community in terms of their work because it's interesting to me. It's fascinating, and it looks like it could be important, right? But what's of great interest to me is when periodically some of these people in a public setting will recount the moment of inspiration, what they call it, whatever, where they saw what they needed to do with regard to their science. And for some of them, it actually began in childhood. That's how far back. So anyway, yeah, I'll say no more. So, but so I mean, there is this. I call it a pressure gradient, or it's really the need to know. It's almost like around certain issues for us in life. I'm living with one right now without going into detail. It's a significant, consequential issue, family issue, and I need to know. I need to know the right way to approach this issue because there's consequence.
Yeah.
So I that's
Hmm.
a situation of note.
What is that like? Because this we're here talking about like how to navigate life's crossroads, and here we are like with this experience, right? So without going into detail, but I'm just wondering if we can like pause and just sit with like what's the actual experience of sitting at a, we can call it a crossroads, or we can call it at a moment in life where we need to we need we need to take some sort of path. We need some sort of guidance, or and so what's that like? Because I imagine there are many people out there who are either going through this right now, or they will, or they just went through it. And I know that like sitting at that crossroads can be so challenging.
Very, very. Well, one of the things that I do is I look down the pathways, to see what I can see,
Mm,
right? So, um, in this particular situation, both pathways, what I see, there are problems. Almost whether you take this path or you take that path, there are problems.
okay.
So that's sort of one diagnostic.
So
Is can you see it, and do you see it?
so almost like projecting ourselves into that pathway as much as we can, perhaps, and maybe is it to an extent intellectually considering what it would be like, to an extent I imagine also sensing into it, what happens to us as we imagine ourselves down that pathway, like do we see ourselves in that situation, or
Right.
do we, you know do we feel actually like alive in that
Right.
situation?
I mean, this is a practice that we engage with ourselves. Then there's this inner guidance experience on the we'll quote on the edges or on the periphery that, and I don't know. I mean, you could even pray for inner guidance and it may not happen, right? And in the end, you may have to just act because you're at a crossroad, right? You're going to go one way or another, and you may have to act. And then there's the actual going down the road a couple of paces and seeing how it really feels. How does this really feel? You can commit to a degree down that pathway, and you can, if you hopefully you have the option to decide otherwise if needed. You see,
This technique, I feel, is huge. I remember, I don't know, 10 years ago, having such a difficult time in these moments where I felt like I needed to choose something here or there, this or that. And I was, what it was a sense of paralysis around making the wrong choice, right? I so wanted to walk the path that was right for me. And I was, desperate to kind of gain clarity and please, may this become clear to me. And yet this fear around making the wrong choice actually probably delayed me and kept me from actually moving forward. And it was starting to actually apply this technique, which is not feeling like I had to like make a full commitment, okay, here, there, but actually just like, it's almost like testing the waters, taking a little step, and then really fencing, and then taking a little step, and being okay with actually, with if it feels wrong, I'm not going to go down it. But this technique, I just want to pause and acknowledge it, because I feel like for so many others there, I know, friends that I've had who feel stuck at a crossroad, and they they can't budge in one way or another. And one way out of that is just this technique that you're mentioning, which is just take a little step.
Right.
What's one thing that you can do that will move you in that direction? It won't fully commit. It's not the whole thing. You don't have to declare it to anyone that this is what you're doing, but it gives you a sense. It's almost like experience, like the action creates the space for experience. And perhaps with that experience, now more clarity can emerge. Now more guidance can emerge.
Right.
Versus here we are, seeking guidance, and yet we're not in relationship to life. We're in relationship to our ideas about life, and it's kind of hard to get going, to have any sense of.
Right. One of the things that I take note of palpably at the feeling level, I think maybe I mentioned it earlier, was the pressure gradient. So just at a feeling level, this isn't intellectually, this is more, where does the pressure, where do I feel pushed and pulled most? So that's another thing I do take note of. Yeah, so you can, this is the benefit, well, the value of doing, quote, a life review. You can go back in time and you can sort of see this, whether you call it pressure or whether you call it, it's not absolute certainty, but it's growing certainty that a situation just isn't it for you, or you're no longer, you can't see a certain situation you've been in. And there's certain indicators. I don't know how to fully describe what I'm saying, and hopefully you're getting it, but there's either a palpable pressure that's growing, that a change is coming, and that's not it, but this might be it, or you can't see, no longer able to see a situation that you've been engaged in.
You say no longer able to see. It's almost like it lost its reality.
Exactly. It's a strange thing, because for others around you, they would like, what's up with you, right? Like, what's up? But for you, it's right. It's like the reality is sort of draining out of the situation.
Like it's fading.
Yes. Yeah. These are some of the ways that this inner guidance experience manifests, I feel. So, and then there's the momentary experiences that we have, whatever, the shrill feeling, the chills. It's interesting. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was a podcast with an individual who's been, I guess, described as a whistleblower with regard to this whole growing question of non-human intelligence in the world and its interactivity with humanity, right? Whatever. And this individual was a whistleblower individual coming forward with notable information relative to this topic, right? And this information has been given to Congress. But this gentleman was saying, I was offered a job, a specific job at one point at the Pentagon, and I couldn't see it. Right in the interview, he said, I could see it. I just couldn't see doing it, so I just didn't accept it. And I thought, there's an experience of inner guidance right there.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, we it's almost like whatever this experience of inner guidance is, somehow we create frameworks for it. I got this feeling that this, oh, I just don't see myself this, or I can't see it, or I mean, even like I got a bad feeling about this, or I know I should, or I know I shouldn't.
Right.
And it's almost like we can minimize those moments of boop, something comes into our experience or into our awareness, an idea or whatever, and we just lump it in with the rest of thoughts.
Right.
And what we may be missing.
Right.
As a result of not paying attention to those things.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. I mean, honestly, so on a larger scale, we're from a larger perspective, we're talking about navigating life. And we are passing through major stages of life, right? And on a very large level, there may be a calling for as many as possible to get to wherever they're needed in life, right? If it's possible, if that's possible. That requires navigation. And so anyway, we have this resource at our disposal. It's an aspect of our intelligence that intervenes periodically, momentarily, or over time. Like I said, pressure gradient. Something is continuing to mount and indicate that a change is needed in some aspect of our life, right? Or something is coming. that we need to prepare for.
Yeah.
So it's potentially for a reason and for a purpose. We've been endowed with this intelligence to survive as a race, right? There's a huge calling for us to come to terms with what we are able to know, not just figure out and think, but what we can know about our situation condition as a race, as a humanity, and the gift of our time is that never before have we had such an amazingly comprehensive perspective on ourselves as a race as we have today, right? So I know that's going big. It's going, big, big, and then
go
we'll
big.
bring it. But we're all participants in this.
Yeah. Yeah. There was something you said there that I want to acknowledge, this underlying, I don't have to call it an assumption, but there's this underlying reality that almost can go unspoken as it relates to there's somewhere I need to be, right? Or right, it's like, what is this inner guidance in relation to? So in other words, it's like, if this is a compass, what is north? Right? And so there's this assumption, there's this reality, I think, that where we're coming from, that there is actually a purpose to each of our lives. That there's actually something we could refer to as destiny or purpose or a meaning, that it's not just happenstance, that we're not just here to follow the pleasures of our mind or even just what brings us happiness in the moment, that there's actually a direction for our life that is not just, and it's not just about us. It's actually in relationship to life, capital L life, all of life as it's unfolding, but certainly other human beings, and certainly, as you're alluding to here, the greater journey of this incredible group that we're part of, which is humanity. When we talk about this race, it's humanity. It's this incredible journey of humanity that we are actually a part of. And our journey is actually not disconnected from that. So when we talk about this inner guidance, I think it's important to acknowledge that it actually is not just about us. It's about our participation in a greater reality. One could call life, one could call reality itself, but that there is actually for each of us somewhere that we need to be in this world, that there are people who we actually, specific people who we need to be in relationship with, and that there is contributions that we can bring in relationship with others to serve others, to help them, to serve the world, and that in so doing we reclaim perhaps a part of us that in part has been forgotten. And it's that process of being willing to follow something that we don't completely understand, which will perhaps reveal that to us as being real and as being the center of who we are.
Oh, so well said. And I think innately, many of us know that we're at a turning point, in a sense, humanity, really, and not just humanity, but in a way, life on Earth, really. So this is important, and so to periodically zoom out and zoom in I think is really, really constructive. Periodically, you know what I mean? You like zoom up to the top of the hilltop and look around and then say, okay, and then come back down. Because we have a relationship with the larger reality that we're a part of. Okay. And so that's an important message that needs to sort of stream through humanity, which is you're needed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, I've been thinking of children lately, and how often does anyone ask a child what they really think or feel about something? What do you really think about that? Do you think about it? Do you have any feelings about that? You know what I mean? Any feelings about that? Or about anything, actually, right? Just to begin to sort of open the aperture for this kind of expression to occur, realization and expression to occur. So yeah, zoom out, zoom in. And so anyway, there are nuggets of experience and functional insight that can help us get down the road in life to wherever we, you know, when you speak of service, it stirs an emotional chord, contribution and service.
Yeah.
Many of us, have we ever stopped to consider that we actually are in a position to make a contribution, at whatever level? You know what I mean? As opposed to consumption, contribution. And it doesn't have to be grandiose. It could be just really listening to someone. Like our last episode in Spiritual Matters was about really listening and seeing how what you're hearing is striking you, and what really being heard it does for the person communicating, whether it's verbally or otherwise. Because there's a lot to know there. We're talking real communication now, the value of real communication. So, yeah.
Yeah, I as you were speaking, I mean, I was just thinking about mostly young people who are coming up in the world, and I would imagine, because I've been there at times myself, the question of like, what is the point of all of this? Talk about crossroads. It's like, why does it even matter what I choose? And they might have a hard time actually being present and wanting to participate in the world, because it seems like the world has abandoned them and a sense of importance around their lives, and this notion of, or this experience of, there actually being a purpose for each person who is alive and will be alive at this time, that their life has meaning, and that there is a way that they can actually discover that meaning. And the price of it is to be willing to listen for guidance, for intelligence, for a sense, for a voice within themselves, for something that isn't exactly their creation. That's the price. And it's almost to imagine, if life is this little journey of different choices and what could have been and whatever, it's almost like, what does a life look like when at each crossroad in life, basically, the choice was made to follow, to the best of our ability, that inner guidance. And at the end of the day, it's like, when we come to a crossroad, let's just, and to use this other analogy, as opposed to two roads, there's two doors. And I've kind of used this in my mind in the past to kind of anchor myself and to simplify things. On the one door is following this greater, deeper spiritual intelligence, this sense of knowing that's connected to my purpose in life, a deeper aspect of who I am. And I might experience this as inner guidance. That's one door. And the other door is basically everything else. All the other possibilities that the world offers, which is infinite. And I can go down that path and it will show me all the things of the world. And I might still have that question of, why am I here? And what am I doing? And so I think about the youth who perhaps are looking down the road of an entire life and thinking, what is there here for me? And the possibility that by listening for and following this inner guidance, that a life of purpose can be revealed to them, to all of us
Right.
if we're willing to actually follow that.
Right.
And it takes courage
Right.
and humility.
Right. Right. And these little inklings and moments that we have, uh, they're they're actually an expression of a larger intention potentially, which is what you're speaking to.
Mm.
So we can start there and begin to honor the experience as we have it, as it occurs, and work with it, almost that chemistry. You know, it's almost like there's another aspect of our intelligence is injecting something into the moment.
Mm.
And so, yeah, this is important. And that's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
To bring forward this aspect of our intelligence and how it expresses itself in other ways as well, but this is one of the ways.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good, thank you.
Well, good.
Right.
Good place to end it.
Yeah.
And we'll talk again in
Yeah.
1 month.
Yeah.